Welcome to this explainer. You know, manufacturing life-saving biologics is absolutely incredible, but it's not just about the cutting-edge science happening inside the bioreactor. It's actually about building a literal fortress of quality. Today, we're going to dive strictly into Module 7, focusing on the foundational good manufacturing practice, or GMP systems, that actually construct this fortress. Because the reality is, every single vial of biologic medicine that reaches a patient is protected by this massive, invisible infrastructure of facility design, strict contamination controls, and rigid quality systems.
Okay, so let's look at the blueprint for our fortress. We're going to cover 5 main areas: facility design and flow, layered contamination control, the pharmaceutical quality system, deviations, CAPA, and change control, and finally, applying the quality mindset.
Starting right off with Section 1, Facility Design and Flow, establishing the perimeter. Notes. Wait, let me fix the numbering to match the prompt exactly. I will continue with VOSEO3 text. Actually, scratch that. Let me just flow right in. We always start at the physical level. Why? Because the layout of a facility physically dictates how people, materials, and equipment move around to minimize any contamination risk. The walls, the hallways, the airlocks, they are literally your first line of defense.
Now take a second and think about this. What is the main advantage of unidirectional personnel and material flow? Why in the world would we strictly dictate exactly how you walk through a building, forcing movement in only one direction?
Well, it's pretty simple. Unidirectional flow ensures that clean paths and contaminated paths never, ever cross. By consistently forcing movement from cleaner areas to less clean areas, we drastically lower the risk of contamination. You absolutely never want dirty equipment or, personnel who just finished a messy task crossing paths with a highly purified product.
So, what are the actual bricks and mortar of these physical defenses? First, we rigorously segregate incompatible activities. We also use a strategy called campaigning, which basically means dedicating an entire facility suite to just one specific product for a defined period of time. We're also relying more and more on single-use disposable systems to just completely remove the heavy burden of cleaning validation. Adding qualified utilities, think heavily filtered HVAC systems and highly purified water, plus strictly controlled cold storage chains, and boom, you have constructed a truly solid physical perimeter.
Moving inside that perimeter, we hit Section 2, Layered Contamination Control, Active Defenses.
Here's a question for you. Why rely on multiple layered contamination controls instead of just building one single perfect system? If the goal is to keep microbes out, why not just build one flawless, impenetrable wall and call it a day?
Because honestly, no single control can be relied upon alone to flawlessly protect something as complex as a biologics manufacturing process. It's just a myth. Instead, we have to use the Swiss cheese model. Think of it like this. Every single control has microscopic holes in it, but when you layer multiple slices together, if one layer fails, another independent safeguard is right there behind it to catch the hazard before it ever reaches the product. And we need all those layers to fight our primary enemy, cross-contamination. This is the unintended transfer of material, product, or organisms between processes. It's a massive, critical concern, especially in multi-product facilities or anywhere that live organisms and purified finished products exist under the exact same roof.
So let's look at how this robust layered system actually builds out. We start with strict aseptic principles to keep microbes from ever entering sterile zones. Then we layer on validated cleaning and disinfection programs that use rotating chemicals so nothing builds a resistance. We add bioburden control across all raw materials, and we utilize process-level viral clearance steps. And crucially, this is a big one. We use routine environmental monitoring of our air, surfaces, and personnel. Environmental monitoring isn't just a box-ticking exercise or paperwork to file away. It is a highly active alarm system that triggers immediate investigations the second negative trends pop up.
Which brings us to Section 3, the pharmaceutical quality system, the operating system. Because let's face it, our physical fortress and all those active defenses are completely useless without the invisible administrative framework holding it all together.
The golden rule of GMP is as simple as it gets. Documentation establishes what should happen, and it provides the absolute evidence of what actually happened. If it isn't documented, my friends, it didn't happen. Full stop. Flawless documentation and comprehensive training programs ensure that personnel know exactly how to perform their duties, and they absolutely underpin the trust in literally every other quality process we're talking about in this explainer. But how do we actually trust that documentation? We rely heavily on data integrity, defined by the Alcoa principles. Your data must be attributable to the exact person who did the work. It has to be legible. It must be contemporaneous, meaning you write it down exactly at the time the action happens, not 3 hours later at the end of your shift. It must be original, and of course, it must be accurate. Even minor weaknesses in these core data integrity principles can completely undermine your confidence in an otherwise perfectly designed manufacturing process.
Next up, Section 4, Deviations, CAPA, and Change, Emergency Protocols.
So we've built the fortress, we've layered the defenses, and we've booted up the operating system. But what actually happens when an alarm gets tripped and our perimeter is breached? That's when we activate the emergency protocols. First, we need to know what a breach actually is. We call it a deviation, any departure from an approved procedure, specification, or expected outcome. And listen, a deviation isn't just an administrative typo. It triggers an immediate, highly formal investigation to pinpoint the root cause, figure out the scope of the problem, and deeply assess the impact on product safety.
So, you've investigated your deviation. You've found the breach. Now, what is the primary purpose of a CAPA following that investigation? How do we actually fix a breach in the fortress wall so that it never, ever happens again? Well, that is exactly what the CAPA process is for, corrective and preventative action. Step 1, identify the deviation. Step 2, investigate the root cause. Step 3 is the corrective action, where you fix the immediate fire burning right in front of you. But step 4 is where the real magic happens, preventive action. This is where you implement lasting changes to reduce the risk that this specific issue ever recurs. Managed alongside strict change control protocols, this step-by-step process ensures our facility stays in a documented, continuously improving state of control. And all of these systems ultimately funnel into the final quality gates. It actually starts all the way back at supplier quality management, keeping a close eye on the raw materials before they even enter the building. Then, right at the end of the line, comes batch review. This is where we consolidate every single manufacturing record, every test result, and every last deviation record. Finally, a qualified person makes the final deliberate release decision. Batch release isn't a rubber stamp. It pulls together every single piece of data from the entire process. All right, Section 5, Applying the Quality Mindset Case Study. Let's take all this theory and put it into practice with a real-world scenario. Let's pretend we're at a fictional company, Northlake Biologics. Here's the scenario. Northlake's fill-finish suite is undergoing its routine checks, and a minor, isolated environmental monitoring trend is suddenly observed in a highly grade-controlled area. Remember what we said earlier? Environmental monitoring is an early warning system. The alarm has officially been tripped. So, what happens next? The fortress responds, and it responds perfectly. Step 1, the trend is detected. Step 2, the quality team immediately applies containment and assesses if any product currently in progress was impacted. Step 3, they launch a root cause review, diving into recent facility activity, checking airflow patterns, and reviewing personnel gowning practices. And step 4 is the outcome-focused response. This is just a brilliant illustration of how the physical controls and the administrative CAPA systems work perfectly in tandem to resolve an issue, guaranteeing that patient safety is never, ever compromised. I want you to really listen to this core principle. Release is a deliberate quality decision, not an automatic outcome of completing manufacturing. If you take away only one thing from this entire explainer, let it be this. Quality is an active, continuous, and highly deliberate process. It is never just a convenient byproduct of making something. So, I'm going to leave you with this somewhat provocative thought. If one layer of your facility's fortress failed today, right now, would your quality system actually catch it before the product reaches a patient? It's a critical question, and it challenges every single one of us to seriously evaluate the redundancy, the data integrity, and the ultimate strength of our own quality systems. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep building those fortresses of quality.